Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of History After Hours. My name is Kevin Pumphrey, and with me, like normal, is Mr. Ron Franklin and Mr. Jeremy Nixon, three history teachers from Lakeside High School. And we are recording this on Thursday, November 17th, 2022. And in this episode, we get into politics. We answer a couple questions from students through Instagram Live. And we end up talking a little bit about Thanksgiving, which for us, Thanksgiving break is coming up next week, and we are very excited about that. So, with that being said, we hope you enjoy this podcast. All right, History After Hours. Here we are again. This is the first us three doing it without the live studio audience.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while.
So, yeah, we couldn't get one in this month at Collective Coffee, so we thought we would come in here after school because, that's the name of the podcast, History After Hours, and get one in. So let's start. We're going to do some political stuff first, and then we'll get into
we have a student. We want to do the student question first, or you want to start with what you've got?
No, we can start with the student question.
Ellie Eldrick wanted to continue her streak of having the first topic, and so she wanted to know what historical figure we most identify or relate with. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's difficult because, historic figures are historic figures, not history teachers at a local school.
Right.
So it's hard to relate to that. And then if you relate to a historic figure who's done some bad things, which most of them have, they think, oh, really? You endorse that? Which is not,
Which part of that am I? I don't know, because everybody's so complicated. Everybody's got the both sides scenario.
Did you just go Socrates and be like, we're teachers?
Yeah.
Of course,
But he was the teacher they killed. So
killed
do you really want to?
Yeah, I got to go more modern.
Plato. I really like Plato. If you want to go ancient Greek, I do a big thing on Platonic philosophy, especially with the art history kids. Like we just did that, as a matter of fact. So,
You know who I like? I don't know that I relate to this, but I definitely respect Truman, who never got the props at the time when he was president. But if you think about, he just became vice president, and FDR dies, this historic figure that has been president seemed like forever. Like if you were in your 20s, FDR is the only president you ever knew. And all of a sudden, there's this guy named Truman who no one knew who he was. And, oh, yeah, we're still at war, and he's got to make this horrible decision about the atomic bomb. But regardless of all that, he still kind of was just plain talking, did what was best for the country, kept his head down. And something else he never gets credit for is desegregating the military, which, everybody thinks of JFK and LBJ as the civil rights presidents, but he stuck his neck out to do that after World War II. And, you got to respect just the courage he had. And I can't imagine being thrown into that situation. That's another podcast topic that we could do one day.
Do you know who else was influential in not necessarily the political side, but pushing some of the political narrative that to get it more in the public's eye? Dr. Seuss. If you go back and look at his political cartoons from World War II, there's a lot of it that criticizes the United States for its segregationist policies, especially in the workforce. Especially, like, how are we going to win this if we're not all together? Why are there separate entrances for the workers? Like, we should be united in every way we can. When I found that, I was really intrigued by it because he catches a lot of flack for some of his. I mean, if you go back and look, some of them have a real racist hint to them. Some of them are very openly stereotypical, but also, and I'm not trying to say but because I'm not trying to support that. But if you look at it in context, it makes sense. Part of what he's mocking is Italian leaders and Japanese leaders and German leaders who we were at war with. So that kind of makes sense too. But then you flip that and you go, he was very much pushing for an end to segregationist policies here in the United States. And I don't know if that had any impact on Truman or not. He's a cartoonist. You see what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But to continue to push that into the public. Into their stream of consciousness, I think is an influential thing to do.
And I was going to say, another podcast topic that relates to this that we should do sometimes is which president had to take over the worst situation. Oh. Because there's some that just got thrown into this, and then did they do good or bad,
took over during a bad situation.
I mean, Lincoln kind
Yeah.
of takes the cake probably, but still.
well, but I mean,
But Johnson was in a bad situation, of course.
I'm thinking about following a president who was in. I mean, that to me, Johnson's in a no-win situation. Seems like.
Yeah. All right. What about your historic figure?
Yeah, I mean that's hard to say because I don't relate to really any of them. Because, like you
Right,
said, as
yeah.
a teacher, I'm trying to think: is there a teacher in history that's
Which
overlooked
maniacal
or-
person am I most like?
Yeah, yeah.
Megalomaniac.
By the way, I'm sure Truman did some horrible things and might have said
Oh,
some
yeah,
horrible
yeah,
things,
I
so
mean,
don't
Since
dig
you
up
brought
that.
have you ever looked at the end of his life, at his post-presidency? Like, he kind of fades into almost oblivion. There wasn't a pension for ex-presidents at that time. He ends up a couple of bad business deals.
Almost bankrupt.
He's like very much, his finances are really skewed. But he kind of just plods along, and does his thing. And I think it was because of him and his story that they ended up establishing the pension fund for the presidency.
Yes.
Am I right about
and-
that?
Yeah. Well, and also he is the first president to have a contract to write his memoirs. His book saved him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I do remember that because
Yeah.
he was reluctant to do that because he
Right.
thought it was unpresidential. He thought it was
And no one
unbecoming
had
of
done
someone.
it, yes.
And they'd been because his story is an intriguing story. But that was one of the ways he saved himself
he
from
saved
financial
himself,
ruin. I do
yep.
remember that. Oh man. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, first one. There you go.
And yeah, and everyone since maybe I don't know. Seems like it.
Well, now if you're president, you're already rich usually,
True.
and if you're not, you're going to be.
What was okay? So I don't know this. What was his background before he became vice president?
He was a failed suit
yeah.
maker in Missouri. He served.
He got FDR's attention. Why?
He lied on his eye exam so he could fight in World War I, and he actually was a good captain, I believe, and did well in World War I, but then went back home, failed businessman. But I'm not sure exactly how he went into politics. I don't remember that story.
Was he a frontline infantry guy in World War One?
He was there with the action, but he was more of the. I forgot why he got promoted, but he's one of those guys that people, he was just very plain spoken. He wouldn't dress it up at all. He was just very pragmatic, and apparently he did very well in leading the men he had in World War I. I read a book on it years ago, so I'm having trouble recollecting exactly.
Wasn't he part of, not that Missouri had a huge political machine, but wasn't he part of the Missouri political machine and then FDR needed him on the ticket later, on the 4th, was it, I guess 4th, because he wasn't the original FDR vice president.
Well, I was
No,
about to
he
say
was-
I don't know who that was. Now that I think about it, who was the original?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really remember.
Yeah, Truman had just been selected as the vice president, so he had been like for 3 months before FDR died, and then all of a sudden now he's the president.
So yeah, I do think Truman is probably one that's underrated, and thrown into a really bad situation. I finally did get Instagram Live to connect, so we do have some students that can ask us questions if you
okay.
guys want.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see.
What
See
about
how that goes?
instead of saying what historical figure, what fictional figure?
What fictional figure
Yeah.
we relate to?
If I'm going Plato and you went, what did you say? You said Truman and you said you didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is there a fictional character that? Yeah, that'd be difficult too. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this
don't
is-
know. That would have
to give that some thought, maybe.
It's
for
a good
another one.
question though to relate.
Ellie,
to,
if you're watching,
know.
your question has stumped us.
Yeah.
It's a good one though. It's complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we can move on to some political stuff because the midterms has just occurred, and it's not what everyone thought. So and I know this has been already talked to death in all the news and all that, but they were expecting the big red wave, which historically that's what happens. The president party, the Democratic Party, the party in power, usually gets, beaten pretty thoroughly during the midterms. And
Especially if that president is facing high inflation.
yeah.
And
Yeah, we all
I mean,
thought this was going to be it pretty much for him.
Yeah, but it turns out it wasn't. Now, so let's go through. Give me y'all's take because y'all are much more tuned into politics than I am right now. What is the potted summary on why the GOP did not do as well as expected?
Well, I mean, really what it boils down to is the Supreme Court lost them the midterm. When the Supreme Court overruled Roe versus Wade, it sent a shockwave through suburban women, and it spurred voter turnout in younger people like they haven't seen before. And so I really do think you can depending on if you are happier or sad about it, but you can thank the Supreme Court for this one. The Dobbs decision shook fundamentally to the core, because the only other times we've seen this following 9/11 and then in the Great Depression, otherwise the incumbent newly elected president has lost seats. And he did. He lost seats. He lost the House, but he kept the Senate, and that bucks history. It bucks the trend. So
Also, as unpopular as he is, like he polls, Biden himself it's not like he stirs up a lot of excitement for the Democratic Party. So, like, the economy wasn't doing great, and he's not that popular yet.
Well, but to see different parts of the economy are doing really well. If you think about it from the corporate stronghold, I mean, the Dow, if you just look at that index by itself, it's still running numbers up into the 34,000s. That hasn't faltered, really. I mean, it kind of shakes here and there, but it hasn't really dropped off like you might expect it would. Consumer confidence, although while people are complaining a lot about the high price of things right now with the inflationary index the way it is, that hasn't really curbed their spending habits. And so that is interesting to me, that people are still willing to like fork out all this money for all these extra things that they have in their lives. Here comes the holidays. That hasn't slowed anything down. Just for example, the people that are clamoring for these Taylor Swift tickets right now, I mean, people are willing to pay an exorbitant amount of money for these tickets, even through these secondhand dealers. It's like this mad scramble. It's like nothing's going on. But then I'll hear people complain about high gas prices. But then I think truck sales are at, these gas guzzling behemoths that we have around the country. Like those sales are still pretty strong. I don't know. It's like this. I'm getting these mixed messages about the economy is bad, but we'll still go out and eat. And we'll still go out and spend on luxury items. And here comes Christmas, and Black Friday sales have been going on forever, seems like already. So I don't know. I mean, so on one hand you go, the economy's bad, but is it? Unemployment is half of what it was when he took over. The job growth month to month is pretty steady and strong. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not here like patting Biden on the back. That's not what I'm doing. But I'm saying when you hear one thing, but then you see other indicators that don't seem to mesh with that narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's been a lot of news lately about layoffs. Amazon is going to lay off, I believe. And I think more layoffs will be coming. And the interest rate hikes, they're designed to slow inflation, but they will cause layoffs. They will cool off the economy. So I mean, it's coming. I think I'm confident that
even the housing market rates have dropped back down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm confident it's coming. I just don't know with the commercial season and Christmas and the boost you get from that, and then temporary employment. So I think it really depends on consumer spending,
which doesn't seem to be curbed, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And if it's not, and we have a really robust season, and people are willing to spend hundreds, or if not thousands of dollars on tickets, and they're willing to travel for the holidays, and they're willing to go to all the Black Friday sales, then maybe it's not going to be as bad as people think.
Do you think that there's any kind of consciousness across the country about the way that supply and demand actually works? And part of the reason why the inflationary rates are the way they are is not really a political party's problem, whether it's Republican or Democrat. I mean, global supply and demand, especially post-COVID, like there's still a lot of recovery that's going on just from that. Big parts of China are still absolutely shut down because they're still doing that zero COVID policy. You get one case in a town, they shut the entire city down. I don't remember which I was reading the other day. I think it's Guangzhou, there's 24 million people in that city, give or take, and they're all at home right now. So much so that I saw some protests last night. Did you see that?
Yeah,
people out in the streets. But anyway, maybe the fact that there's all this boogeyman talk about the economy, and yet people are still spending the way they do. I don't know if that had any determination in how people ended up voting.
Yeah, and I think there's a certain demographic that feels it more than others. I mean, there's people right on the border so they feel the inflation more than somebody who has a little extra money each month. And maybe it's coming to where more people feel the effects. Us as salaried, people, that can budget a little bit easier than others. Of course, it also depends on your children and so many factors. So it's kind of hard to gauge the entire economy. But
do you think that he got some younger voters with the push for forgiving the student loan forgiveness?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did, even though that's on pause right now. It's being, but the telling thing is if you look at the exit polling, yes, the number one issue in the economy was inflation. However, those voters still broke Democratic because, and I think it's for a few reasons, because I think Democrats did a good job of talking about democracy is on the ballot. And if you look at the pattern of who lost the elections.
And personal rights are on the ballot.
Yeah. A lot of the election deniers lost their races. There were personal liberties and rights on the ballot, like you said. And, I think it mattered. I think it mattered tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of consider myself more independent. I definitely wouldn't consider myself extreme liberal or anything. But the GOP, to me, didn't have any solutions. It was more of a cultural war for them, And so it's like, okay, the inflation's bad, but what are they promising? Just tax cuts? Is that, that's not going to solve any problems. That'll just make the government even more in debt than it already is. So
more tariffs. See, that doesn't help.
Right.
So,
but true GOP wouldn't support that anyway.
No, that's protectionist. That was
Where's
long
our
a
free
harbor
market?
for the Democratic Party. Yeah, which is why you actually don't see, or I attribute it to Biden really not going back on those. That was very much a democratic economic policy, protectionist tariff policy that Trump and everybody with the GOP just went, oh yeah, and we're gonna have to go along with it because he was the leader. So
I bet behind the scenes they were just up and you wonder what those fly on the wall conversations could have been like when he's making these policies that are very against traditional GOP policies and platforms. And they just had to kind of smile and grin and go, yeah, it's great. When I know that they really probably didn't mean that.
Remember when they had the bipartisan meeting with him about gun control? And he said, well, why can't we just take the guns? And they're like, no, Mr. President, now.
Right. Well, now let's steer you away from those words.
Yeah, but because what you're dealing with is a person who was a liberal for most of his life.
Yeah, right.
And now he's trying to act conservative and, So, yeah. So that brings us to the next point, which is since the GOP did poorly, especially the Trump-supported faction, is Trumpism, and of course he's now running. Mm-hmm. How do you feel Trumpism is it alive and well in the GOP? Does it have a future, or are key people trying to separate themselves now?
I think he's got his 34% base that he's going to keep, but the party itself seems like they are walking back. He's already attacking certain people even before he announced his candidacy the other day, which seems, is it early? Is that normal to be this far? Just right after the midterms where a candidate will announce his run for presidency, or is that normally wait longer? I'm confused.
So it's normally in the spring after midterms. This is historically early. And look, he's been wanting to announce for a long time, so the rumors go, and so they were holding.
Because there were rumors that he wanted to before the midterms.
Yes, and they were worried that it would cost them the midterms, and potentially he did anyway. But it's early.
But even people like Josh Hawley, who were there in and around the Capitol on they were all in and around the Capitol on January 6th, but he was seen like pumping his fist to the crowd and like, I'm with you, that kind of support thing. Even yesterday, he's like, look, this is. The GOP needs to be a different beast. Although that doesn't necessarily mean it's untrumped. And it may be just a different version of it. Maybe there's a younger crowd going to take that reign and roll it in their direction.
So we have a student asking, did he just say Trump was liberal most of his life? Yes, he did, because he was. He donated to
Democrat.
both parties, but was active
friends with
in
the Clintons.
Democratic Party. Yep, friends with the Clintons. And do we think that Trump can or will win another election?
You know what? I think it boils down to how many Republicans get into the primary season. How many people will have to split how many voters will split up in multiple directions? Because again, Trump's got, I think, that solid base is just not going to leave him. Right.
I agree. He's got a committed base, and I think you're right. It's probably between 30 and 40% of the party.
And I wonder how much of that was actually part of the problem last time. Because didn't they have
A lot. They had
weren't
15
there like
or 16 people?
4,300 different Republicans running for the nomination
Yeah.
last time? Seemed like they were
Yeah.
all on stage together and they had to split them up.
17 or 18 at some point. Yeah,
Yeah,
there were two.
huge.
There were two debate, like a top tier debate if you polled at a certain percent. And then a
If they
second tier
had
debate.
reined that back and had a few solid candidates that were out there, maybe they could have, and now rather than having to try to figure out what they're going to do now to either embrace or distance themselves from him, that would have been so much more simple for the party to go, no, let's stand with our original take on him. He's a buffoon, which you go back and listen to that. You go back and listen to every major leader in the political party, in the GOP, Mitch McConnell, all the way down the list, and they're like, he is horrible. He can't be. He's immoral. He's unfit. He's crazy. But then the minute he gets the nomination, they're like, well, guess it's time to kiss ass. So,
So Liam would like to know if we think the center right in the GOP will ever have power again. Looks like an a la Mitt Romney or Ron Paul kind of. And I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Who are the young Republicans that can do this? A lot of the young ones are Trumpist.
Right.
When I think of some of the young GOP members, they're more Trumpy than they are anything else. So it's like you need young GOP members that are center.
do you think Kevin McCarthy, now that he's going to be the House Speaker, can steer them away? Because he's distanced himself from Trump.
Yeah, yes.
I wonder if he's
Sometimes.
going to. Well, I know, but more recently, I wonder if he will. I'm curious to see what he's going to do now that that's about to.
The Republican majority is going to be very narrow, and he is going to have a very narrow
Limited role.
path. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how powerful he's going to be as speaker.
Who's the whip?
Steve Scalise, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, it's Steve Scalise. I don't know. I think they will do a lot of posturing. I think they will pass legislation they know won't get through the Senate. I think they will build a platform to run in 2024. Do I think there's going to be a moderate emerge?
That'd be nice.
Don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see it personally. But I don't know how feasible it is. Look, if Republicans don't want Trump, then they need to get behind DeSantis now, honestly. Otherwise, I think Trump has a legitimate shot at taking the nomination again.
So Trump is running, though, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So look, this applies more than it ever has. There's about to be nearly a 2-year bloodbath between front runners in the Republican, because Trump, we know, is running, and he's going to go after anybody that's close. And I wonder how that's going to affect the entire Republican primary.
I sent you an email a while ago, and I wonder how much. I wanted to ask
saw
you about
that.
this. So, Rupert Murdoch,
Yep.
media mogul international, has basically, and I don't know if it's official, but it's definitely seems like it, because the New York Post the other day, their headline for Trump making his announcement, at the bottom of the page in really small script said, "Florida man
makes announcement. Florida man makes announcement.
That was
Yeah.
it.
That was it.
And listen, he has been like a personal friend of Trump's in the past, and part of their news agency network really heavily promoted everything Trump said and everything he did, and that seems to be over. And I wonder what impact that will have, because you won't have that messaging machine the way you did the last time.
Yeah, and once again, it's going to be crazy because Trump and his rallies, they're just going to, the Republicans are going to fight each other like we've
maybe
never
they won't.
seen.
You know what? Maybe they'll just all consistently denounce the buffoonery.
You would think, but
I'm not saying that they're going to. I'm just saying maybe they will. If there's a path to moderation.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see a path to moderation. The student has a question. So do you think there will be a possibility of power change, such as new parties emerging? Do you think the Republican Party would split over it?
At this point,
I
probably
think so.
don't.
I don't see it happening.
I mean, they might split, but it'd be like
Where's
the
our
Tea Party versus like.
Right.
You don't want
to
Freedom Caucus, Tea
Let's
Party.
not have the
yeah.
Tea Party thing happening again. Where's our Bull Moose Party? You know what I mean?
What'll happen is that if the Republicans do move away from Trump, they'll just act like he didn't exist.
Where's
and
our
they'll just
progressive
start-
conservatives?
Oh yeah, well,
They got voted out. They were made political targets.
Right.
That would be like your Adam Kinzinger in Illinois. Not that he's particularly progressive. He's more old school conservative.
Which a lot of people would like to go back to.
Right. Yeah.
And remember, once again, Trump promised winning, but he's done nothing but lose ever since he's became president because he lost him Congress and then he lost the presidency.
And sooner or later, somebody's going to do some math on that, you know? Like he's not, I think maybe he's had his moment. I mean, he's still going to make noise. I get that. And I think everybody gets that. But do you go down that path again? Like you've had this cozied relationship with this brand now for 7 years.
Yeah, 2015.
And are you conservative Americans tired of it?
Are you better off now
than you were in 2015?
Can you do better than that? And like I said, there are people who absolutely love him. Sure, I'm fine. You're free to be. But I think that the majority of the party, I just think that I'm seeing indications that maybe they are getting away from that, you know, and going towards something that's much more. If you're a conservative, your whole shtick is that you're a traditionalist, and Trump is not traditionalist at all. And he, you know, so maybe they'll get their heads together collectively and go, what's best, you know? Because I don't think that he's what's best, and I don't think they think that he's what's best.
What about Biden? Is he running?
I
Is
think
there
so.
anyone else if he doesn't?
Aren't there? Isn't there anybody in his circle to go, hey, you know, maybe it's maybe thinking about maybe what's best, right? Where are the people in the Democratic Party? Since we went off on the Trump tangent, let's go off on the Biden tangent. Aren't there people with inside the Democratic Party going, thank you for your service. However.
Yeah, well,
I mean, sure.
Another.
What is he? How old is he? Seriously, and I'm not trying to be ageist, but if he wins another term, he's going to be in mid 80s, right?
Well, yes, he will be the oldest president. He was the oldest president ever elected, and he will yet again be the oldest president ever elected.
I just don't see.
There, I mean.
No, okay, let me put it this way.
Jimmy Carter hadn't turned out yet. There's still a chance. Come on,
a return. That is a gap and a half between. Okay, but so not about his mental capacity, not about his physical well-being. That's not what I'm talking about at all. But you grew up in a different era,
yeah,
and maybe what you behind your aviator shades, like you're not really Top Gunning it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so maybe you want to let some of the go back in, right? Not that you can't serve. That's not what I'm not saying.
Yeah.
But
are you the best person?
But are you the best person to represent we're really a pretty young country.
We are.
And
yeah.
so I'm just curious as to where are the young front runners. And again, I'm not trying to be. I just want to make sure that people understand that I'm not suggesting that he is that because he's older. Well, he's old. Let's just say it. that incapacitates him. But I am saying that maybe he is out of touch with some things that young people want and need. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, the exit polling from the midterms was clear. They don't, and it's Democrat and Republican don't want him to run again. I mean, I understand why the Republicans don't want him to run again.
But if it's not him, who though?
Yeah,
See,
well, that's their bench is not exactly strong.
I mean, the Democratic machine, the party. I mean, like that's the problem. Is there's nobody else really that they. You know, Biden has so many connections, so many people that he at least used to know, but there's just nobody else that can compare. Like some of the younger ones, do they have the experience? Can they beat Trump? That's still what the Democrats are asking themselves. Who can beat Trump?
I mean, I think you've got some people who could. I think Tim Ryan ran a good race in Ohio for senator, but he's more moderate. He's more middle than left, and I don't know how much of the left wing of the Democratic Party accepts someone like him.
Name recognition too is huge for most Americans.
Do you have to have those pure leftists though? Do you have to have them in your corner to get this accomplished?
Well, and that's the thing. You can only lose so many of them. if you look at the margins from 2016, if you don't have a Green Party candidate and you take out the Jill Stein votes, Hillary Clinton wins all 3 swing states that Trump took.
Hillary.
Let's. I'm gonna just stop there. But the same could have been said about Ralph Nader and Al Gore. So I can what if that back for a while, but you can only shave off so much of the far left. Will they toe the line if it's Donald Trump on the other side? Yes, I think so, but that's not a guarantee. I do think you have.
But they
some
wouldn't
younger
support their
people.
own candidate over. I mean, it just seems weird that if you're not.
Oh, the Democratic Party will eat their own.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's weird, though, right?
It is very weird.
How many times have we talked about that circular firing squad?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Just what are you doing?
Yeah. I don't know. Kamala Harris, I think she's doing a fine job as vice president. I don't think that she will win a general election.
Just don't know how many people are inspired by her, and nothing against her personally.
Right, exactly.
But I just don't know that she's very moving when she speaks. And I think that you're going to have somebody who's a little bit has some show. There's got to be some pizzazz, and I don't think that she's pizzazzing.
There's been that draft Michelle Obama movement for a while. I don't think that's going to happen.
That's not a good plan. Neither is where's the Oprah crowd? I know they're going to come out there sooner or later. We should have Oprah. No, you really? That's not. We've already had our entertainment.
Yeah, I don't want
entertainer
celebrity.
president. We don't need another one.
And are there younger Democrats? Yeah, I mean, Mayor Pete, I guess now Secretary Pete ran, but he has relatively little experience, and he did not do well with the minorities in the Democratic Party. So I don't know who you go to.
It's not going to be O'Rourke.
No, I don't think it's going to be Beto. He's lost Texas twice.
Right, yeah.
And all the, whenever we talk about it in Gov, they're like, Texas is going to be blue. Yeah, eventually, I think it will be. We're not anywhere close to that. And look, he lost by 8 points, something like that, 8 or 9 points. Quit putting your eggs in the Texas basket. It's not going to happen. So I don't know. I don't know who the Democrats go to, but I do think that Joe should. I mean, what did he say? He was going to make a family decision, but I think he needs to make a country decision.
He needs to bow out, but he needs to support. He needs to quickly support someone. The
Yes.
Democrat, they need to get their eggs in a row and get behind a candidate.
But they need to look just nationally and go, who could be the rising star? 'Cause if you go back to when Obama was still a senator before he even started to run, there was a little bit of buzz about him, but it wasn't like super serious. I didn't hear a lot of, it wasn't like a lot of clamor around his name there for a while. But then all of a sudden, he just sort of burst on the scene. Seemed like to me, if I remember back now, and then sort of vaulted. I wonder if there's somebody who's sort of just waiting in the wings like that, just waiting for their moment to announce themselves and then become very well known. Because, I mean, he was a freshman senator, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a freshman senator. He spoke at the 2004 Democratic National Convention in Boston. I think it was Boston. And sort of skyrocketed from there.
Didn't Clinton do something similar? Like, did he? I mean, he wasn't really on many people's radar as governor here.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Suddenly, it seemed like.
Reagan, his 64 speech. There's been a few people that have made a speech at the convention, and then all of a sudden they became the darlings of the party. I just don't. That hasn't happened, as far as I know. I just, they're gonna go with the safe bet. Who can win? And I don't know. Like I said, if Biden chooses to step down, he needs to quickly endorse someone. He might endorse, his vice president. Because I can't imagine him going another direction, but I don't know that she would fare well.
I don't think she'll. Well, I think he will do what Obama did and stay out of it. And I think that's kind of what he has to do, because if he announces he doesn't run, you will immediately have, I can think of at least 5 Democrats who will run on the platform. Harris is one. I'm 90% sure Bernie Sanders is one. Buttigieg is one. Amy Klobuchar is one. I think Gretchen Whitmer might be one from Michigan.
Whitmer won pretty handily.
She did.
Yeah, it's interesting because that, like I said a while ago, Republicans are going to tear each other apart because Trump's going to be in the middle of it.
Yep.
So you think they're going to do to themselves what Democrats typically do to themselves?
Right. And they can't help it because Trump is going to be directing the whole show, and he's not going to sit quietly for a year and a half. He's going to be calling everybody names, and
he's already calling
the sanctimonious,
which doesn't really have I mean, he could do better than that. Come on, he's
Dude,
he's
that's
been working
a
on this.
very complicated word. Sanctimonious. I was like, okay, did he really come up with that? I mean, lying Ted, crooked Hillary, that's easy.
Yeah, right.
The sanctimonious?
Seems
Can
like
you spell that or use it in a
maybe
sentence?
maybe Ivanka helped you with that.
No,
one.
she's out of politics. You
well,
saw that, right?
sure,
Yeah, out of politics.
Yeah, she's trying to stay out of jail.
Yeah, so we might see a very exciting campaign season from both sides, especially if Biden chooses not to run.
I don't think she liked testifying before the January 6th committee.
I don't
Maybe
think she
she's a
did
little
either.
soured on politics, but Kushner's still. I mean, he's still side by side with. Was he at the announcement the other night at Mar-a-Lago? Did you see him?
I don't think he was there. Probably busy, peace in the Middle East.
Oh, sure, that's his main goal.
Anyway,
all right, what else we got?
Okay, so I guess we're running out here. We can end. Well, let's talk just for a second about the school year, and then we'll end with some Thanksgiving stuff. So this is the first year, I guess, in a couple that we haven't started with masks.
Yeah.
And so has it felt normal? Are we back to normal? Or what does normal mean? I don't know.
I mean, in some ways, yeah, right? The way we start, the way we can interact, the way we can do. I mean, especially in my AP classes, dude, back to group work, Here we go, pile up, make your little pods, let's talk about this, and you hash it out, and then we'll all talk about it. That's been that's been so great because the distance and having to do everything online and all that was just so, man, I don't want to do that ever again,
Yeah.
I mean, we functioned, but it wasn't like we weren't like running at full capacity, seemed like. So here,
Right.
it just feels like we're back in a groove. I like that. The day-to-day, interactions and kids coming in and going and in the hall, and it just feels much more comfortable. And we don't worry about I was literally paranoid about, is there going to be a quarantine event, and people go, these many kids are not going to be here today, or they come, okay, we need to see this person and that person, and then right? Remember when we first came back that year with the were we on the hybrid schedules and all that stuff, and the nurse would come in and go, okay, I need to measure from where that kid sat to this other kid, see who was in this perimeter, send them that. So all that's gone.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, good riddance. I'm glad that that's over. I'm sorry we had to do it, but I'm glad that we're back to this. So on that level, like the day-to-day sort of grind it out, let's go, that to me is back to normal.
Yeah.
However, what we are finding is that there is there's going to be this gap. There's this gap that we're going to have to find ways to close. It's going to take years, possibly academic, the gap there, but also like, I don't know, maybe it's some I don't want to call it social interaction necessarily, but the way people process the fact that they're here, and the I hesitate to use the word work ethic because I think there is work ethic, but I think that it's slow in developing back to the way it was pre-COVID. You feel what I'm saying? I mean, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, sometimes I just want to go, you realize you're at school, right? It doesn't feel like they quite are where they're at school. It's much more laid back interaction. It's much to me it feels like they feel they have all the time in the world, kind of like they did with COVID. So
where's your sense of urgency?
Yeah. Like we have to move on. We have to work on these skills. We can't just say, okay, forget about it.
From what we've heard from multiple teachers around the building is that there's this is a new development, and maybe it's COVID related too. There's a sense of entitlement, let's use that word, that students have developed, some students, not all of them, and like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to turn it in when you say I will. Right? There's this weird undercurrent of I'm going to challenge you on things because I'm not used to being pushed like this, and they're going to have to learn that we are the professionals and you are you're the learners here. You have a job to do and we have our job to do, and it's not your job to tell us how to do what we do. And I think parents are stuck in that weird mode too. Some of them are very much about, well, I demand this. Well, you're not necessarily in a position to be demanding. Like you don't run this school. There's a reason why we have administrators and the reason why we're here as professionals. We know what we're doing. And I think that maybe there's this blurred line between our professionalism in what they think they can do or should be able to say, because they've been doing it on their own for a couple of years, and they think they've got it. Well, no, and we're back to full capacity as far as what we demand and the rigor that we're expecting.
Right.
And a lot of kids have hit a wall this year. I've used that terminology in class quite a bit. You've hit a wall. What are you going to do about that? How are you going to fix your side of that problem? Like, we have our standard now, and we're back to full standards. Can you meet those standards, and can you not? And some kids that are struggling with that are really, I mean, I can see why they would be, why there'd be an emotional reaction to that, because they're not used to being pushed this way, perhaps, So that's something that we're dealing with, right? But I can see that coming, it's molding back into what it needs to be as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really kind of impressed, I guess. I was expecting worse, but my junior class, at least skill-wise and effort, has been pretty good.
You're welcome.
But I always try, I know. I think that is largely due to y'all, correcting them in 10th grade, and I don't have to deal with it. But I also wonder about students in the lower grades, like the kids that are like in 9th grade now or even 8th grade, like when COVID hit them at such an important time for them. And it obviously depends on the kid.
Well, I think there's going to be some developmental issues, not from an interpersonal level, the academics we talked about a while ago, but also just in here's how we work, and here's how we process, and here's what we demand, and here's what you do. I think that's going to be, I think you're right. I never really thought about it that far back, though, but think about those kids who didn't get to go to kindergarten.
Well, the thing is, like, if some teachers really kind of lower their standards or expectations because they feel for the kids, which we all do, but if that just can't continue. At some point, It's got to be uncomfortable, and the kids have to catch up. And catching up is not going to be easy. They're going to have to go faster than normal students. I don't know what grade that's really hitting. It could be not 10th grade. It could be even lower. I feel bad for the kids that are in that situation. But I do think we are going to be suffering the aftershocks of COVID for several years.
And it's social, too, though. And that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning. Maybe this will make more sense than what I was saying at the beginning. This is how we behave at school in all aspects. There's 2 years there where they weren't at school. So, hey, high schoolers, don't get up and slap each other in the face. Why are you doing that? You're playing. Kindergarten rules apply. Hands, feet, other objects to yourself. Like this year has been more of that for me. Like, why? How are we acting like this when you are in this grade?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that as much. I'll tell you what I've noticed, which has kind of really blown me away, is students that tune me out with just directions, like put your name on it and turn it in, or and where do we turn it in? Mm-hmm. Or like do this, and then right after that, what did you just say? Or they don't hear the directions as I'm talking to them in class. It's not that they're not doing their work or trying, but I think because they were at home listening to teachers rattle through a computer and they could zone out so easily, I think they're having more trouble focusing.
Well, I'll say this to go along with what you just said there. I think while they were at home, they were convinced that they could multitask and do everything well and still get good grades. And maybe they're still in that mode. They're not used to having to sit and listen. They're not used to having to concentrate on one person or one thing at a time, because they may have had, let's be honest, they probably had their Chromebook, and maybe they had their phone, and maybe they had their friend, and maybe they had, a movie on Netflix, and you're flipping back and forth between all those things, and then you stop and go get a snack, and you're just like bang, 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 bang. Well, now you have to, right? That's back into the machine you go.
Right.
Right. And maybe they're struggling with that. They're so used to being able to zone out that it's complicated for them to retrain to get back into a mode where I need you to engage longer. So maybe that's part of what you're seeing.
Yeah. And also multitasking. This is something I learned recently, that neuroscientists say that people can multitask, but both tasks suffer for every human. You'll never get better. Now, that's not talking about fidgeting and stuff like that, or listening to music, because you don't really listen to it. But if you are trying to do two things at once, both things suffer. So that's why it is important to put your phone up and listen, or, focus on the one thing you're really supposed to do. Okay. Well, it's going to be a learning process as we go through this year, but let's end on a thankful note. So we are about to head to Thanksgiving break, which of course is a week long this year, which is great. Sometimes it's not. I like the week long break because you get the weekends. But all right, so let's go favorite Thanksgiving food.
Okay. when you were a kid, or now, or both?
Both. Either. What are you looking forward to on Thanksgiving? Which I know you have a thing where you cook it every now and then just for fun.
Yeah, we for whatever reason we didn't do the half Thanksgiving thing this year, so I'm really looking. We haven't had it since it's been a full year. Yeah, we normally cheat, Sometime in July, we normally go, it's half Thanksgiving. Well, we
Seems
didn't.
too hot for Thanksgiving.
No, but I mean, we do it like on a small version. It's not the full course thing. But listen, I've always been a big fan of not stuffing. I really like dressing. I like cornbread
the
dressing.
dressing,
Maybe that's the southern, the southern aspect of it coming out of me. I really dig that. I'm a big fan of cranberry sauce, though. My wife has learned to make this she didn't buy it in the can. Like she goes and gets the cranberries and she does the whole process. It's freaking good, man. I'll tell you my least favorite thing, something I'm not thankful for, green bean casserole.
Me too.
I hate green bean casserole. And I don't know if it's the green bean or the casserole, but I think you know what I think it is? I think it's those stupid fried onions on top. I think that's an abomination.
Yeah. Okay, so
So it's like
dressing,
to me that's a comfort
favorite,
food though. Yeah. So and then desserts. I mean, I can throw desserts out there too, but
Yeah, well, that's mine too. I mean, I love the dressing. That's my favorite thing. And I like the desserts. Give me a good pecan pie. I'm happy. Those old Southern things. That's what I'm used to.
anything that you would avoid, go to grandma's house or whatever, you see it on the table, you're like, yeah, I'm going to pass on that.
Yeah, I would never eat the green bean casserole. I share that with you.
There's always some aunt that nobody likes that always brings that, you know. What's that about?
I don't want anything. Deviled eggs. I had the aunt that would bring deviled, and I'm just like, I don't understand it, and I don't want it.
It's not an egg. There's something special going on in the middle of this egg.
Anybody in your family do
Thanksgiving.
ham for Thanksgiving?
Yes, I'm the bless my mother, because I'm the one who loves the turkey and everyone else would prefer ham. Oh, but it's me. I want the turkey, and I will fight for that damn turkey. So my mother has always been very accommodating.
Baked or you ever do the fried thing?
I've
You ever
had
do
the
the deep
fried.
fried?
I'm not a big fan of the fried.
Buddy of mine has perfected that kind of thing. You know that big super Cajun pot that people will get, and you just shunk them down in there. He got like a super industrial version of that, and just perfect, tender. It's nothing dry about it at all. Yeah, so it's good. But anyway, but we don't do that. That's rare that I do that. What's your thing?
My least favorite Thanksgiving food when I was a kid was dressing. My favorite Thanksgiving food now as an adult is dressing. I've never liked cranberry sauce. I don't know why. It always seemed. Is it a dessert? No, it's.
What's this
gooey?
weird? The one out of the can, there was this weird gelatinous.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Is that the right word?
Yeah.
So, and it just doesn't. It's like a. You ever seen that movie, The Blob?
Yeah.
It's kind of like The Blob, just you take it out of the can, it does this weird shimmy,
Yeah.
But the all natural, the organic version that my wife does is like really awesome. I'll bring you some. You'll see what I mean.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to have some good
But
cranberry
you're not supposed to just buy it by itself. Like it's in a company. It accompanies other.
So
foods.
do you put the cranberry sauce and like mix it in the dressing? Because I've seen
no,
that.
well, I like take a bite of this and a bite of that. I like to blend flavors. Some people don't like that. I do.
I do too.
But that's, to me, if you just ate cranberry sauce, like that's no good.
I say let's put it all in a blender and drink it. Let's see what happens.
Protein shake.
Yeah. I do like the meat. I mean, of course, I like that. And then the desserts are always awesome. And then I just...
Oh, man. You know what else? To go along with all that, to cap it off, hot, like fresh yeast rolls.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Boy, I remember my grandmother... When we were growing up, like she could bake bread. I don't know how she did it. She would actually start the morning, just put it all together, and then somehow or another have all of the meal, because we go to their house for Thanksgiving when I was a kid, and she wouldn't let anybody help her either, just her. And then she'd have all this spread, and then you knew it was ready because she would knock that bread out and put butter on there, and it would just kind of, the aroma would fill the house, and you're like, it's time. You just knew it was time. Yep. It was always the tradition.
So pecan pie.
In
the South, it's pecan, right?
I say pecan.
I've heard pecan.
Yeah, I've heard.
Isn't that more northern though? Is that more of a northern dialect?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Sure.
Anybody in my family's always said Pecan, yeah.
Yeah.
I love pecan pie. I usually only eat it about Thanksgiving, and I've never eaten it and thought, wow, I'm glad I did that. I usually want to immediately take a nap, and then I have heart palpitations for a day or two. I don't know what's in it, except it's just got to be loaded with sugar.
It's Cairo syrup. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's high in fat.
Yeah.
So the calories, the fat, and the Cairo
It's just,
syrup.
you just glug it down. and then
Cairo
you
syrup.
pass
Yeah.
out.
Cairo syrup, sugar. Pecans. But
Because Cairo's got not enough sugar in it.
yeah.
Brown
It is
sugar. I
just-
think there's brown sugar in there
You're
too.
having sugar on sugar with some pecans.
Yeah, the protein should balance it, right?
You said with the protein shake thing, I saw something I almost never see, which is Pumphrey interacting with children, having an actual conversation. It was about
You broke out of robot mode?
don't
he
know.
did well, but it was about working out.
Oh,
Okay.
And
Sparked my attention.
Talking about form for something I can't remember, but he said protein shake. And I was like, I forgot I saw Pumphrey in the like in the real life. He interacted.
You see
I'm
me
gonna
every
tell
now
on
and
him.
then.
I'm gonna tell on him.
It does happen.
It does happen, kids. You
I
can
know.
do it.
What students don't realize is the stuff that we do in class. I don't want to do any of it. I don't want to do reading quizzes. I don't want to do. I want to talk about what I want to talk about, but I don't because I'm just programmed to push.
Who was in there? I think it was William Ivy and someone else. They were asking a question about something, and you were answering like form and telling them. And like,
Oh yeah, I think
like,
they were
it's
wondering
Pumphrey in
about
the wild.
deadlifts. They were
Yeah.
having an argument: do deadlifts work your back or legs more? And it really depends on your form, which is getting most of it. But
But I thought that was funny. I was like,
yeah,
he's interacting. Don't scare him.
I might keep going. I guess my fear is if I keep interacting with them on a normal level, they'll eventually see me as human, and then they'll just start throwing
Turn
a
on you.
party and turn on me. All right, so Thanksgiving is coming up, so we hope everybody out there has a great Thanksgiving, and we will see you on the other side. Goodbye.